Good morning, fifth graders. It is October 8th and it is Thursday. I hope you had a good day yesterday. I want to thank one student for turning in their entire virtual field trip all the way completed. Thank you to Luz for doing that. If you did not get it turned in, please work on it today after you're done with today's work. Yesterday we were talking about, or 2 days ago actually, we were talking about what good readers do, and we read a story about the Erie Canal. I asked you to pause and read it to yourself. Today I'm going to read it to you. The Erie Canal. Let me make it bigger so we can both see it. In the early 1800s, most people in the United States lived along the East Coast. However, the population was growing steadily in an area around the Great Lakes. The region was originally called the Northwest Territory, but it later became known as the Midwest. This region was rich with farmland and natural resources such as timber and minerals. America was growing fast. People who lived on the East Coast needed wheat, wood, and other products from the Northwest Territory, but the Appalachian Mountains stood between this region and the East Coast. There were no trains or cars at that time. Transporting goods across the mountains was difficult and costly and took many weeks. The completion of the Erie Canal in 1825 changed that. The Erie Canal stretched across New York State, connecting Lake Erie in Buffalo with the Hudson River in Albany. Traders and travelers could then use the Hudson River to complete the journey east to New York City. Once the canal was built, goods from the Midwest no longer had to be transported by land across the mountains. Instead, traders could send goods to Buffalo. From there, the goods could easily be floated east on the Erie Canal. Remember, yesterday I asked you when you read a section to think about if you understood what that section was saying. If not, your strategy should be to go back and reread it. Here was a picture. The Erie Canal is right here with New York on one side, Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, they're part of the Great Lakes. A canal is kind of like a man-made waterway that connects two things, and you can see it's connecting the Hudson River with the Great Lakes. Before the canal was built, shipping 1 ton of wheat from Buffalo to New York City cost about $100. With the canal, that cost was cut to $5, and it took just 6 days instead of 3 weeks. The economic impact was huge. New York City quickly became the business capital of the nation and a gateway between the Midwest and Europe, which was also hungry for natural resources. Farms in the Midwest prospered. The Midwest soon became the food-growing center for the entire nation. Goods traveled west on the Erie Canal, too. As more and more people moved west, the need for goods manufactured in the East grew. Factory-made items such as tools, machines, and textiles were shipped from New York to fast-growing western communities. Every year, traffic and trade along the canal increased. In 1862, more than 3 million tons of cargo was carried east and west on the Erie Canal. By 1880, that number had grown to 4.6 million tons of cargo. So the Erie Canal was helpful in getting shipping going across the United States and across over to Europe. Life along the canal changed as the canal's popularity grew. People who used the canal for travel and shipping needed food and places to stay. So towns popped up along the canal route. In time, some of them grew into cities and shipping centers. Small villages grew into major cities in just a few years. Factories and mills also sprang up along the canal. By 1850, several cities were producing textiles. Syracuse had become a leading salt exporter. Salt from Syracuse was shipped to towns and cities across the nation. In 1815, Rochester only had 331 people, but by 1830 it had grown to a population of more than 9,000 and had become one of the country's biggest flour milling cities. The two endpoints of the canal, Buffalo and New York City, experienced astounding growth. Moving so many goods required thousands of boats along with crews to operate them. Companies typically operated the passenger boats, but cargo boats were often owned by families. Boats were pulled by teams of mules that walked beside the canal on special roads called towpaths. In 1845, there were about 4,000 boats being run by about 25,000 men, women, and children. Thousands more people were needed to maintain the canal. With all of this activity, life along the canal was lively and sometimes rowdy. Aside from the economic impact, the canal had other benefits too. As people traveled and conducted business, tiers developed between different parts of the United States. This helped to make the growing nation strong and unified. Immigrants from Europe traveled west on the canal to start new lives. It is safe to say that the Erie Canal changed the course of American history. So now we've got a few questions. Now, it's hard for you because you don't have the book right in front of you. So I'm going to be flipping back and forth, and it's a little bit tricky, but I'm going to try to flip back and forth. This one says, read the question, circle the letter of the correct answer. It says, what is the main point the author is trying to make in paragraph 1? So we're going to look back in paragraph 1. Paragraph 1 is talking about people living on the coast and that the region was growing around the Great Lakes. Talked about how it had farmland and natural resources, and people who lived on the East Coast needed things from the Midwest. It talked about that the Appalachian Mountains were in the way and that it was hard to get goods from one part of the United States to the other. So take a look, pause my video, and take a look and see if you can make a choice. Which one of these items do you think is the main idea of that paragraph? Okay, so your choices were in the early 1800s, more people lived on the East than the Northwest. B, life in the Northwest was different from the East Coast. C, trade between the East and Northwest territory was difficult. Or D, few people crossed the Appalachian Mountains before the Erie Canal was built. The correct answer was C. So if you chose C, you chose the correct answer. It mentioned these other things, but when we're talking about main idea, we need it to be what that whole paragraph is about. The next one says, in paragraph 5, the author states that life along the canal changed as the canal's popularity grew. List 3 examples of evidence from paragraph 5 that tells how life changed. So I'm going to pop back to paragraph 5. I want you to pause it and see if you can find 3 ways that life changed once the canal was built. I would say that one of the things that changed is that small villages grew into major cities, that factories and mills sprang up. That's another change. That Syracuse shipped salt all over the nation and that the population grew. So there's 4 different choices of things that changed along the river. In the last paragraph of the passage, the author writes, it's safe to say that the Erie Canal changed the course of American history. Look at the paragraph below and think of which 2 details prove that the Erie Canal changed the course of American history. I would say that something that proves that it changed history is that it helped make the growing nation strong. So that changed our history. And it also developed ties between parts of the United States. That changed our history as well. Okay, your next job is to study your spelling words. I want you to please pause the video and practice your words. You can just write them all one time. You can write them twice. You can write them forward. You can write them backward. Just pause the video and practice your spelling words. We are not going to have our test until Tuesday. I forgot that Monday is not a school day for us. So Monday the 13th is not a school day, or the 12th is not a school day, and that's the day I thought we were going to take the quiz over this. So we're going to postpone it to Tuesday. So go ahead and pause me and come back when you're finished. All right, let's talk about vocabulary. These were our vocabulary words. We've talked about them for a couple of days now. I'm going to give you a hint, and I want you to see if you can guess which word I'm describing. Let's see. Which word do you think means to go back and forth? The answer is number 7, alternate. Which word means to get rid of? The answer is number 1, abolish. Which word means to treat badly? The answer is number 3, abuse. Which word means bold and intense, and you're right up in somebody's face if you're playing sports? You don't hold back. The answer is aggressive. Which word means just silly and crazy and doesn't make sense? The answer is absurd. So we've got two left. We've got accomplish and achievement, and they are super closely tied together. Because if you accomplish something, it means you do it. You complete a task. And achievement is that task that you completed. So accomplish and achievement are really tied together. We could say we accomplished a great achievement. They could be in the same sentence together. Okay, and the last part of our day is grammar today. So I'm going to include 2 videos on common and proper nouns. We talked about that nouns are people, places, and things. And we talked a little bit how to make nouns go from single to plural, from one to more than one. And these videos are about another different kind of nouns, common and proper nouns. Common nouns are the kind of nouns that you don't capitalize. They're not specific. They're like boy or girl. Proper nouns are the kind of nouns that you do capitalize because they're the name of something, like Grant, or Riley, or Ava, or Luz. So those are proper nouns. So watch the videos. I put them on the Google Classroom page, so there'll be some links there. And then I also put some links to 4 different games that I want you to play to study them. Have a great day. If you have any questions, shoot me an email.